Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. If it's Monday or Wednesday night, then it must be California Haunts Radio Night. Please take this time to gather some popcorn, hamburgers, hot dogs, maybe even dinner or whatever snacks you eat, and have a sit down in front of the TV, the computer, or even your cell phone and enjoy the show. Well, hey, welcome to California Haunts Radio tonight. We have a great show lined up for you. Chris DeRose is going to be here to talk about animal activism. We are the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, www.californiahaunts.org, and this is our news night for this kind of thing. And I'm really excited to have Chris come in and talk with us because I've done work in the past with Performing Animal Welfare Society, and this stuff is true to my heart. You guys know I'm forever rescuing kittens and whatnot. So. But his stuff's more on a large scale. So, Chris, are you there? Hang on a second. Let's see if I can bring him in. Chris, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Fantastic. I'm sorry you're not feeling well. That's what they told me. Are you feeling better?
Yeah. I'm okay now.
Great. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I was reading, some of your profile on your website, but I'm fascinated by you as a person.
Yeah. Well, I got started in animal issues back in 1978. I just got done doing a TV series, and I was and when you're done working as an actor, you go into a workshop class and you kind of keep fine tuning your craft. And while I was in there, one night, a dog walked out from the street, came up the stairs, and out of 35 people sitting in a class, he comes in, he sits right at my feet. And you have to remember, I never had a dog or a cat. So it's not a dog-cat issue for me. It's an issue of respect for life. And, of course, I care for them more than I like to think I do. I do. How do you not love them? I mean, but I've never went on that premise before. Because anyway, when I got in there, the dog, the teacher said, "Look, Chris, you want to take the dog outside?" I went to bring the dog outside. I was afraid he'd get hit by cars. Traffic was whizzing by, so I bring him back in. And I asked the teacher if I can keep him there. He said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So I brought him home. And I gave him some leftover spaghetti and meatballs that I had laying around. And the next day, I thought I'd bring him to the shelter. Well, I was so busy that the next 3 or 4 days, I did a screen test for a movie, and he sat there and he just waited for me. Wherever I went riding in my Jeep, my open Jeep, he'd be there. But the funny thing about it is, when I put him out in the patio that night, and I expected him to stay out on the patio, but I left the door open just in case it got too cold out there. And because dogs are supposed to be outside. That's what I thought. I didn't know. I never had one. So all of a sudden he pushes the level wall blinds, comes in, and I'm looking at him, and he's face to face with me, and I'm thinking he's going to bite me or something. Next thing I know, he walks around the foot of the bed, back to the head of the bed, hops up in the bed, puts his back on the pillow, back to back with me in bed, and then he gives me a shout with his butt, like move over a little bit, and I realized that he's got intelligence, he wants more room. So anyway, after about 3 or 4 days, I did put him in a shelter because some people were saying, look, he's such a good dog. Somebody's got to be missing him. So I put him in, and sure enough, that the next day, the person came and reclaimed the dog, and they happened to be the producers of a TV show called the Doberman Gang. But anyway, and I learned a lot from this dog. And when I went to put him in the shelter, he put both his paws down on my feet and started crying. And I said, and I saw myself when I was 5 years old, my mother putting me in an orphanage. And I remember hanging on her leg, crying not to leave me there. And that was the last time I cried for like 35 years. And so anyway, I said to the lady, I said, you know what? I'm going to keep the dog. I don't know what I'm going to do with him. I got to move now. I can't keep him where I live. And and I got responsibility now. And she said, no, you already signed the papers. You got to put him in there. I said, lady, you can stick the papers where the sun never shines. I'm going to take the dog. I'm not leaving him here. So just then, a short-haired, kind of Charlie Manson looking guy said, hey, kid, I'll take care of your dog for you. He picks the dog up by the neck, by the tail, kicks the dog into the cage, and I lost it at that point. I grabbed him by the neck and by something else, and I lifted him straight off the ground and pinned him up against the wall. And then that was the last time I ever did that. All the animal control officers jumped over the counter. They grabbed me. They called the police. The police made a deal with them because I happened to know one of the cops. Made a deal that if I don't come back there, they will not press charges of assault and battery on me. So I agreed. I left, but I couldn't sleep that night thinking I left this little guy in there. And I came back the next day and nobody was watching. And I walked right into the shelter. It was very busy up at front. And I walked in and I saw all these little kids. I call them kids, all these little dogs in the shelter, and shaken, scared, curious. Anyway, I wound up telling the lady that I'm going to come back. I'm going to take that dog tonight. She was a volunteer worker there. And I never did have to come back because when I got home, she called me and told me that that the people came in and reclaimed the dog. And, but I learned something then. I also learned when he put his paws down on my feet and started crying that they have feelings. Animals have feelings too. So now they have intelligence, they have feelings, something I was never really aware of, never really gave it much thought. And but I was never cruel to animals. And I always thought animals were cute, but we were so poor that my mother said, don't bring any dogs or cats home because I can't afford to feed them.
Mm-hmm.
It was just me, my mother, and my sister. And that was it. That's how I got started in caring about animals and being involved. And then one other incident one time, somebody had asked me if I would go into a laboratory and help this guy document and photograph what goes on in research facilities. And I did. And after about 3 or 4 times going in with him, I started going in on my own. And that started a chain reaction of me going in and documenting and trying to expose what's going on inside of research facilities, the horrors. I had no idea what went on in there. I had no idea the methodical torture that went on. I thought, you do research on an animal, you just do it humanely.
Mm-hmm.
Such thing as doing it humanely because it's against their will to begin with. So there's nothing humane about it. And then the condition that these animals were left in, if people really knew what went on inside these facilities, they would be demonstrating by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. And that's what got me going in the anti-vivisection movement and then eventually the animal rights movement. And so here I am, 42 years later, still doing it. I really thought that I would only be doing it for a couple of years. The money I made as an actor, I put it in there. My little bit of fame I had as an actor and notoriety, I'd be able to apply it to helping the animals. But it's going on a lot longer than that, 4 decades longer.
Well, what you do is wonderful. I mean, like I was saying in the intro of this, My family and my friends get irritated with me because I am a person that will pick up a stray. I'm like that. I'm just like that. And I've had a couple feral cat colonies that have gone through my yard, and rescue kittens and whatnot. And my friends will say, "Well, you can't rescue them all." And I said, "Yeah, but I can at least get a few." Stop that. That's my dog. I can at least get a few. You didn't like what I had to say? Hey, stop.
That's something to say.
She wants to be on the radio. But she has to be everywhere I'm at. And so yeah, so I do like I had just rescued a couple of kittens about around Christmas time because another cat was attacking them and would have killed them. So I have that in my backyard right now. That I've got 2 rescues that I kept from another litter in my house, and then I've got my dogs.
Good for you.
So if I had the ability to go out and do what you do, I would probably be out doing it because I just don't go for that stuff.
Yeah, everybody has a place, as long as everybody's doing something, and we all have it. Not everybody's going to go out and do nighttime, surveillance and things on facilities that are this risky or dangerous. Not everybody's going to do that or can do that. And I just have to have the knowledge on how to do things like that. And I'm a street kid, so I'm not very little I'm worried about. I'm afraid of, I'm concerned, but I'm not stupid, and I do make things happen. So,
I hear you. Tell me a little bit, like you talked about people, like you say, people don't realize what goes on when they're testing animals. Can you kind of enlighten us on that?
Yeah, you have an animal that's in a cage, and then it's put in a stereotaxic device when they're going to apply. There's invasive and uninvasive experimentation. Invasive is when they cut the animal open. You've seen these where cats or dogs or monkeys have their heads filleted open, and they have electrodes in there and stuff. That's vivisection. That's animal experimentation on live animals, whereas dissection is the cutting up of a dead animal. So vivisection comes from vivere in Latin, which means to live. And but the thing that's really bad about this, Charles, is that these animals undergo such pain and suffering, and there's no analgesics for them. There's nothing there to relieve their pain, absolutely nothing to relieve their fears. And then they're put inside a stereotaxic device, which you've seen, where it's things where like points of a piece of metal going into the ears, the eyes of a cat or a dog. And then they can cut into that animal while it's totally alive, unanesthetized. It's like doing an open heart operation while the animal's not getting any anesthesia at all. So these things do go on. These things are not something that are created out of the minds of animal people. These things are things that have been documented hundreds of times over by myself, by other people. It's been documented. So the horrors that go on inside a research facility are nothing but methodical torture for an animal. And it just goes on and on and on. And the only relief that animal gets is its last breath one day. And that's the only way it gets out of there.
I think about, when you talk about the chimpanzees, I think about that movie Project X.
Oh, Project X. That was about a friend of mine, Neil Bernard. Yeah. I remember that. That was back. That was back in late 70s, early 80s.
Long time, yeah.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. But that was a great project. Expose.
Yeah, for the space program.
That guy's a friend of mine, and how he got started was he was a hunter. He was from North Carolina, and he would go out hunting, and he shot a deer with a bow and arrow and crippled it in the back, and the deer was still on its front legs, and the back legs were down. And he went up to it to finish it off, and the deer turned around and looked at him and just went, woo, woo, woo. And that was the last time that he took his rifle. Oh, that's right, he shot it. And and then he took that rifle and broke it and never went hunting again ever. And that's what got him going in his quest for helping animals. And that wasn't really put out there too much in the movie, but I know
Yeah.
I very well, so I know the story, the inside story. Yeah, but that was
Was
a
it
great,
true also?
true
Well, was it
story.
true also because they kind of did a takeoff on it on Quantum Leap as well? Only with theirs, it wasn't a nuclear thing. It was they were taking the chimpanzees over to test them for impacts for helmets.
Oh yeah. That was they do a lot of those tests. There was an expose one time of a laboratory called the Generelli Laboratory in Pennsylvania, where they would cement the heads of baboons inside it, and then they had this impact thing that would hit it like as if it was in a severe car accident. And
Mm.
what it did is separated the axioms in the brain and caused the animal to be um, to not have full control of its motive mechanical motors. And so and then yeah, there was that. I don't remember exactly what the I know that they were trying to do something cute like teach the chimp. There was a chimp that they were using because chimps are cuter,
Yeah.
and they were teaching the chimp to fly, and
Yes.
control the rocket. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
They're not going to send up a multi-million-dollar rocket or spaceship and have a primate, one primate in there controlling it. It just doesn't work that way. But for the sake of the movie, they did it, and
Right.
it did bring a lot of attention to the issue. But I think, in a sense, it brought the wrong attention because the right attention would have been showing the horrors of what these animals go through, and this movement would be so far ahead. But it's hard to get the accurate, honest information out there. I'm happy that it got some information out there, and it was
Mm-hmm.
based on this friend of mine, Neil, and he was great. He's a great guy, and I don't know if he's long since passed away or not, but he was a
And
great.
you hear a lot of stories about the cosmetics industry too. A lot about what's going on with that and how people are getting their makeup. It's just disgusting.
Products and cosmetics, absolutely zero. There's absolutely no use for those at all. Excuse me. Um, and my friend John Paul DeJoria owns Paul Mitchell Systems,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been not testing on animals. I've known JP for 45 years, and I'm doing this for 42 years. But I've known him before I got involved in the animal stuff, and he was telling me, Chris, you know why I don't have any problems with my products and not testing on animals. He said because I use safe ingredients. I don't use chemical ingredients that can cause harm. And he says, and if I got to test something, I test it on my hairdressers, my family members, and myself. And he says, use safe products, you get a safe. Yes, use safe ingredients, you get a safe product. It stands to reason. And this is a guy that's made billions and billions of dollars in the business. And Paul Mitchell Systems, everybody knows Paul Mitchell hair products,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the leader in it. And he speaks out against animal testing. He's got an office in China where they really want his business, and he's been there. He's spent several $1 million now just running the office there for years now. But they want him to test the animals, and he refuses to test on animals there. He knows there's a whole market there, but he refuses to test on animals. And he's a man
Wow.
of consciousness.
Wow. I know,
So
you hear a lot about that happening. I mean, PETA's out doing their thing, and the stories that you end up reading are horrible, like with the chickens and everything, and how they keep them so crammed up to lay the eggs and everything else, and it's just horrible. It's horrible stories.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got your factory farming, You've got stuff. You know, when I first got involved in this too, when I first started Last Chance for Animals, which was 37 years ago, and I remember doing an investigation on, because I had no idea how the government conspired to be a part of this horror of factory farming, of vivisection, animal experimentation. And when I did catch somebody and they didn't have a Class B license like ABC, and it's a B license to procure animals already in existence and sell them for experiments in a laboratory. Well, when I found that out, and I finally caught somebody and they didn't have a license, I turned them over to the USDA, thinking the USDA is going to prosecute them because they're licensing them. They didn't even prosecute them. They gave them a sheet of paper to fill out, pay $50, and you're now a licensed dealer. So I spent months and months trying to bust this guy. I bust him, and then the USDA turns around and gives him a license anyway. And I call pet theft because these animals are procured already that are in existence, people's pets, and they turn around and they sell them for experiments. I call pet theft organized crime sanctioned by the USDA. And that's where it comes from. And I was shocked because I'm thinking that, wow, I got a good case here. I got a case where the government and federal government's going to prosecute and go after these people. No, they did the opposite. They managed to just give them a license and tell them, now you got a license, you're legal. So, and that's happened many times before I finally realized the USDA is part of the problem. They're not part of the cure. They're part of the problem. And what I saw goes on inside these laboratories, and another big thing that's launched me was this Malamute dog. When I was going in a bunch of times by myself into these laboratories, and then I started going with a friend of mine, Bob, and I wound up going into this one laboratory at the VA, and it showed 12 dogs in a room, and they were having ulceration experiments done on them where their stomach was infected and they had a crusted catheter tube sticking out on all the dogs. The last dog was a Malamute. And I remember holding the dog up through the cage while my friend was videotaping and photographing the dog. And I'm holding it up and it's looking at me and it's rubbing its face against my face. And this infected incision opened up. And I'm not going to go into the detail, but the dog died. And within minutes, the dog was dead. And I made that dog a promise. I swore that I would spend the rest of my life fighting this. Because what is going on in here is not medicine, it's madness, it's not science, it's insanity. So if I, a street kid in a Hollywood acting films, having a great life, you know, and could just drop all that and then turn around and put my focus on there, you know I saw some pretty horrible stuff. And just stuff I couldn't comprehend that was humanly possible, what humans can do to an animal or to people for that matter.
So when you get a report of cruelty, how do you get the reports into the cruelty to start the investigation?
How do we get the reports?
Yes.
We get too many of them. We have people call into the office, but as far as laboratory stuff, you just need to pick a laboratory and go in and you'll find zillions of violations. I've yet to be in a laboratory, and I've been in many, 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 many labs, and also many bee dealer camps where they have these bee dealers, and you see the horrors that go on there. Again, they're licensed by the United States Department of Agriculture. Excuse me. And then same thing with factory farms. You could pick any one of these things and you could just go in and start looking and you'll find the horrors. And there's never one that I've ever picked randomly and gone in and not created a case out of it, because that's how bad they are. Even laboratories like in Canada, we just busted laboratories up there, and And this one place for ITR was supposed to be like the number one place for experiments and all this other stuff. It turned out it's not even owned by a Canadian company. It's owned by a Japanese company. They didn't even know that. The government doesn't even know that. They're not even aware of it. And the same thing with their slaughterhouses. The same thing with their factory farms. We had there's so much I couldn't even go into it unless we had hours. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, the factory farming is a major, 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 major problem in all this. And but I don't ever want to forget, and I won't forget, the horrors of vivisection that goes on inside of a laboratory. And that's almost every major university in the country and every major hospital in the country has their share of animal experimentation going on there.
How do you get into these places? I mean, I don't want you to like give away all your secrets because obviously you have ways you're doing this. But are you? I mean, do you guys go in as alter egos, or how do you get in there?
Well, every place is different. You got to set it up as an investigation, and you got to look at the weak points of every facility, and you go for the weak point, and you got to do a lot of surveillance to see who comes, who goes, what time they come, what time they go, what type of alarm systems they're doing, and what have you. And again, it depends. That's a laboratory. But then you got the factory farms. They got their own security too. And it could be anything from three or four geese, chasing you out of the yard, to extensive alarm systems. So it really depends on the facility itself, and it depends on the security that they got set up. There was a time that in Riverside, there's a facility there. I won't mention the name of it, but long before there were raids on these facilities, long before this facility had top of the line security, and it had canine units walking the perimeter, and this was a hospital. This was a hospital, and and again, I'm not gonna name it. And the hospital is part of a university, so I'm pretty much giving it away a little bit. But and it's and the stuff that went on inside there, even with human beings, was mind-boggling. It's scary, and these are the things that are kept from us, the public.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a pretty facade, and the pretty facade could be trees or a big blank beautiful brick wall, no windows, and and these are not things that we make up. These are things that we've documented. Because if we ever made this stuff up, we'd have been sued left and right so many times, and never been sued simply because it's true. I've documented it. It's real. And what bugs me is that even with the presentation of this and bringing it forward to the public, that we don't have tens of thousands of people demonstrating in the street. We don't, because people live in their bubble. They don't want to know about the horrors of what goes on. They really don't. And I don't blame them in a way. But you know what? If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. We need to speak up for what goes on inside these places, whether it be factory farms, bee dealer camps, puppy mills, research facilities, whatever it is. There are thousands of them across the United States alone, thousands of them. And but we don't do anything about it. 3 blocks from where I'm sitting right now, there's major research facilities. I've been arrested there so many times I can't count them anymore. And I've served time in jail 4 times in LA County Jail because of it. But and then 1 mile down the road the other way is UCLA, Cedars-Sinai. You got all these research facilities. Southern California is loaded with research facilities. So, I don't know. I wish I had the answers, but apathy is a big problem with the American people, with people in general. They just, I I don't know if it's because of fear. Fear drives people to do anything or not do anything. But there's things that everybody can do. When these facilities are exposed, you have other people that do demonstrations
Mm-hmm.
in front of the facilities. They're not asked to go inside the facility to do anything. They're just asked to just be a part of the demonstration. Maybe you want to do more than just demonstrate. So you be a part of a team that does civil disobedience, which this country is based on. And you know, you had Thoreau, Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King. It's proven that civil disobedience can draw a lot of attention to an issue, a social issue, and it has. You know, I mean, one little guy brought down the British Empire, Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, and then you had Dr. Martin Luther King here in this country. Um, so you can do something about it, and that's just my point. I think, if nothing else, do something about these things because they do exist. They're going on all around you. They're covered up. You can't see it because they always say if these research facilities had glass doors, there'd be riots because glass windows in them. There'd be riots because to see what goes on inside those places. I'm a tried, hard-nosed, tough Brooklyn, Jersey kid, and I've seen a lot of stuff in my time, but nothing like I've seen what goes on with animals in research facilities. Nothing.
Well, I can honestly say, as a young reporter, I'm not going to say where it was, what city or anything, but there's a big university there, and I remember I got called out on a story, and I wasn't real happy about it because they said, "Well, we want to send you over, to look at the lab rats, because they got these lab rats that are like super rats." And I said, "Okay, I don't want to do it, but if I have to, I'll do it." So I went, saw the whole thing. There's the lab rats. As I'm leaving, they have a chimpanzee research area, and I guess the wind was blowing just right, or somebody had left a window open, but you could hear the chimpanzee screaming.
Yep.
And it left a bad taste in my mouth. And to this day, anytime I go back over by that area, it really, really bothers me because I know what they're doing. It's obvious.
Yeah. I got a call one time from John Travolta, and because we used to be friends, we both had TV series at the same time, and he called me up and he said, "This is about 5 years after I got done doing my series," and he calls me up. He says, "Chris, I'm over here at the VA in Westwood, and I hear all these dogs crying and crying and crying." I said, "John, that's what I've been trying to tell you. The research that goes on and the pain and the agony and the suffering what goes on with these animals." And he said, "What could you do about it?" I said, "There's nothing I could do about it just like that. It's going to take years to try to expose it and try to, do something about it." But, it's one of those things, too, where people say, "How do you do something illegal?" Well, you know what? Breaking and entering into someone's house is illegal. But if you hear a child being beaten or tortured or the house is burning and there are children in there, you bust the front door down and you go in there and you take the law into your own hands and you save the people. The same thing with these research facilities. The same thing with factory farms. People call these people that do this terrorists. I say the people that have put these animals in these situations are terrorists because that's what's going on inside these facilities. It's terror. And there's nothing else you could call it but terrorism. And excuse me. Sorry.
That's okay. So how many of you've been doing this for a really long time, and I know to put a number on it would be ridiculous, but what's a rough number maybe of how many cases you've gone out on that you've ended up taking to court?
Oh, gosh, taking to court. Well, we've put the first people in the United States in jail for animal abuse, for animal issues. We put the first people in state prison for animal abuse, and then also two people in federal prison. So we broke that ice, and since then, many, many, many people have gone to jail for animal abuse, and now even the FBI knew, going way back then, they even knew that there was a direct correlation between animal abuse, child abuse, animal abuse, spousal abuse, animal abuse, and serial killers. And that's one of the three scenarios that they look for when they're looking for a serial killer: animal abuse, animal cruelty. That's one of the three major things that they look for. And yeah, it's an untold number. I really can't give you a number of
Mm-hmm.
how many animals or how many cases, how many prosecutions, because it's extensive. Let me say that directly, hands on. But our cases are all set, they've set precedents, and they were precedent setting cases to lead the way for other people to do the same thing, which some other people have done. And they go after and they prosecute and they get people put in jail for animal cruelty issues, and then also going into these facilities like factory farms where you are documenting what goes on inside these facilities. Now they got laws. So every time we take a step forward, they come up with a law making it a federal felony or a felony to do something that was nothing but maybe a misdemeanor before. So they keep, and like ag-gag bills, agricultural gag bills. Um, they are, if you're caught on a property and there's torture of an animal going on, or suffering, extensive suffering, which goes on in every factory farm, extensive suffering of an animal, and it's being neglected, totally neglected, which is so obvious that it's now a felony in like 7, 8, 9 states, 16 states it was overturned, but it's still in a felony to document that and get it to the media, document it and get it to law enforcement. It's a federal felony. They call ag-gag bills. So that they're always trying to cover up what they do. I'll give you another example. Even the research facilities, they came up with a bill where if you are taking anything out of a research facility, documentation or animals or anything like that, that it's a felony. So they didn't take out the underground people didn't take out the documentation. They made Xerox copies of it and took out the Xerox copies. They made a new law immediately saying that if you even have copies of something, whether it be video copies, audio copies, Xerox copies or something, they made a law where it makes it a felony to possess that too.
Interesting. And how long? I mean, once you go into or try to go into start researching and go into a place, how long does it take you to put a case together?
It depends on the case. Again, every case is different. Really, every case really is different. Like we did a thing up in Marineland in Canada. We busted them, and it took a long time. It took about a year. We busted them. We got great documentation, and then we wound up busting them again. And then we get a Canadian bill, federal bill put through. I think it's Bill 203 or something. And then it outlawed the owning of these marine lands. Where they have crustaceans like dolphins and porpoises and whales and what have you. It outlaws them. You're not allowed to show animals anymore. You're not allowed to trade animals. You're not allowed to breed them anymore. You're not allowed to sell them. And the only thing you can do is keep them and let them live their lives out there. Well, even after all that, we catch them again the third time because they are showing the animals and they're still making money off of it. Business as usual. Even there's a federal bill up there saying you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. They go ahead and they do it anyway. And but we catch them again, and we go after them. It's just very, very difficult. And until legislators really start to see the validity of what we're doing, and what we're trying to expose, until these legislators see it. Again, the FBI has been on top of stuff that we do, and they know what we do is really good stuff. Anyway, it's a tough road to go down. It's not easy. I thought by now, I thought decades ago, I would have ended vivisection. I would have ended most animal abuses just to expose it. If people who don't even know or care about animals see and witness what I witnessed, there'd be mass riots in the street. Never happened. Never happened.
Wow. I was just thinking when you were talking about marine land in Canada, I was thinking of Tillicum the whale. Because didn't the Canadian park have that whale for a while?
They had it for a while, but it really was in Spain, in that islands. I forget the name of the islands in Spain. But yeah, and then and they did a documentary on that, and exposing what goes on, and it just about collapsed the marine lands of and water parks all over the place that show animals, and because it shows how many people have been killed by them, how many trainers have been killed, but they hide it. They hide it. The secrecy of not letting, and then they continue business as usual until the next the caring. And I got to say, most of them care about the animals, but they're in there. They don't really know. You don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, you got that huge animal, especially that one, because it was so big, and then they've got it in a tank that's probably not, it's not sufficient enough for it to be living in, and they're in captivity after being in the wild. The animal's not going to adapt to all that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, but anyway, we've kept for 42 years. We've set the pace for what the animal rights movement can do, and shown that it's possible. Anything is possible to get done. You just need to really put your mind to it and make it happen. Anything could be done. I don't care if it's exposing what goes on inside the top research facilities. You can do it. You just see. And sometimes in different ways. You asked, like earlier, how do you do it? Sometimes it's a whistleblower. Sometimes it's just somebody saying, "Hey, I've seen some horrifying stuff in this research place. What can you do about it?" We'll work with that person. How do you get in there? How do you do this? How do you do that? And one guy, one time, he delivered the big tanks of oxygen and stuff like that, big tanks. And he was a big guy. And this is a research facility in the valley that was a federal facility. And he went by and he heard cats crying. And he walked by and he had this cat strapped down and with rope, with their mouth wide open, the paws tied out, and the cat was left. Here they are vivisecting the cat, and then it was lunchtime, and they just left the cat there wide open, crying and crying. And this guy sees it, and he brought it to our attention, and we tried to do something on it at the time, but we weren't able to. But that's one of the things. We did manage to get a lot of attention brought to the fact of what was going on in there, but we didn't close it down permanently. I'm sorry to say, but so there's different ways that people come about to bring information to us, and that's the other thing too. Whistleblowers now get punished. they get punished by it. And I don't care what administration it is. You know, this past administration, administrations before that, um, they've, they penalized people for coming out and exposing what goes on inside there. And not just for animals. They could be workers inside of a slaughterhouse, inside of a factory farm that are exposed to certain things, danger, injuries, sickness. And the same thing for the animals, the same thing for the environment. There's this country was built on whistleblowers to expose what is corrupt and what is wrong with any kind of system. But yet we're building laws every day to counter whistleblowers and to make it illegal. Those ag-gag bills, those ag-gag laws, those are stopping whistleblowers from exposing what goes on a farm, a factory farm. But it just goes on and on and on.
And like you say, there's just so many places doing it. And I just wish people would be more open to hearing about it, because I know, Facebook, it used to be you see a lot of that stuff, come across the news feeds, but you don't see it as much anymore.
Yeah, to my disillusion, I find more and more animal groups not really digging their knuckles in and really going after the exposés of something, really getting to the core of something for the animal rights, the rights of animals. It's always easy to go and get a little dog that's been missed. And I'm all for that. I mean, I'm the first one to jump over a fence and grab a dog if I see it's been neglected or or hurt. But we should never give up on fighting for the rights of animals. So fighting for the rights of animals it's tens of millions of animals down the road. It's hundreds of millions of animals. And I tell you, it's not easy. I'm not, this is why people don't do it. It's not easy. People don't do the investigations because they're dangerous. They're not easy. They're risky. But you know what? They need to be done. They need to be done. If you want to see something done, you got to do it. You got to do it yourself. And, I'm the first one to tell you it's not easy. But I've had many, 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 many successes. And I can count the times I've attempted to do something on my one hand and literally have fingers left over. I've probably tried something maybe twice and was not successful at it. And it was not to any fault of my own, but it was due to informants or something like that blew the case for me. But there's ways to make everything happen. There's always a way to make something happen. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. You just can't, you can find excuses all day long. I can't do it. I'm only one person. I was one person too. I was one person doing it. One person can make a difference. One person can make a difference. Together, we can make real change for animals. We can make real change for animals. So
how long did it take you to form the group, or organization that you formed, the nonprofit?
How long did it take to form
Put
it?
it together, to form it.
Oh, that was nothing. Just a bunch of papers, have somebody help you fill them out, and you become nonprofit. This is going back 37, 38 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine it's all relatively similar today. So you can get it. You can get it and become nonprofit. And listen, if animal rights is not your thing, do animal rescue, do animal welfare, do any of these other things that help animals. But animals are at the bottom of the totem pole because they can't do it for themselves.
They can't speak for themselves either.
If you don't help them, nobody's going to help them. They can't do it for themselves. They're at your mercy.
Did you find when you first started this that there were a lot of people that wanted to get involved with what you were doing?
Yes, yes. In the beginning, because it was a curiosity thing too.
Mhm.
It was a big curiosity thing where people felt like, wow, what is that about? I didn't know about animals in laboratories because, we were bringing it out, exposing what goes on in these facilities. We were doing civil disobedience in front of facilities that were raided. And, and then the media would go into their archives and bring out the footage again and show it again. And that's what needs to be done. And stuff needs to be shown over and over and over and over again before people even realize there's a problem. And now it's been shown over and over and over and over and over and over again but they need to do something about it. And no one can say that they don't know about animal experimentation going on, factory farming going on, circuses, what goes on in circuses anymore. Hey, Ringling Brothers, 148-year history. They're gone. They're history. They're nothing anymore. They're no longer going to beat elephants or tigers or other animals, and they're no longer going to stick them on these trains and these cars and terrorize them until they get to the next stop, and then they're shackled 24 hours a day. There's no more. That's not happening with Ringling Brothers anymore. But there are other circuses that do come to town that do that still, and that's something else somebody could get involved with doing, going after them.
Well, didn't they? A lot of these circuses that I'm seeing that come through Sacramento, a lot of them have turned to dogs.
They've turned to dogs.
Yeah, to using dogs and stuff in their shows instead of the big elephants and stuff.
Yeah, they are. And look, the one thing you got to remember too, not knowing what position you take on it or what or who takes it, and that is, it's not what you see that's horrible. Usually you see it's not, it's cute, it's going to be dogs jumping through hoops and running around and flipping in the air and stuff like that. It's what you don't see. It's how when they're not performing, they're locked up in a little cage. How when they're not performing properly, they're disciplined. How when they're not performing, they get axed, they get nixed out of there. And maybe they're left on the side of a highway when the circus leaves. So, but always question things. Question what is it that you're not seeing. It's just like people, I don't know where people come up with, they think that elephants stand on their heads out in the wilds. Elephants, I've been to Africa many, many, many times and on many safaris. And we have projects in Africa now. And we followed herds of elephants. I've never seen one stand on his head or jump through a hoop or stuff like that. Tigers jumping through hoops of fire. I mean, it doesn't exist in the wilds. Why do we try to make it exist and call it entertainment in captivity? Why do we gotta be entertained in such a ridiculous way? So there's no reason for it. There's no reason at all. And all you need to do is just ask yourself, what does it take to train this animal to do these stupid, ridiculous tricks?
It's true. It's sad. It's sad what goes on. It's sad what people, ignore. Especially like you say, there's a lot of video out there. There's a lot of stuff showing people what actually goes on, and they still choose to ignore it. Like what goes on with the cows and stuff when they're hitting them in the head with the hammer, or they got the electric hammer thing that they're hitting them with, and the poor cows are well aware of what's coming.
Yep. And but and that's the thing too. When people say, "What can I do?" You could do something every day. You could help factory farm animals by not eating them. You could talk about it on what you're doing. Talking about it on your radio show. There's things that everybody can do, and excuse me. There's things everybody can do. Buy products that are not tested on animals. Live a cruelty-free lifestyle. And it's not hard. Today, it's so easy, it's a joke. I don't care if you're in Oklahoma somewhere. There are vegan restaurants. I went into this little town in Oklahoma because we were doing stuff happened to be on a circus. And we went to this little town and we found 5 vegan restaurants. So it's not a tough thing anymore. And there's other restaurants that have vegan options. So you could really start by not eating animals. If you really care about them, don't eat them. You know, I had a niece I no longer have, who, loved cats. Rescue cats should walk through fire for cats, but she'd eat the cows and the pigs and the chickens.
Mm-hmm.
So, eventually she did stop, but it was a little too late for my likings. So.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say? I mean, like we've been talking about, people getting involved with this, and what do you say to people that are on the cusp of wanting to get involved with something but are a bit shy about it?
Delve into it. Find out. Maybe there's a local animal rights group. Or there's really no more animal rights groups, to be honest with you. But maybe on a smaller level, just get involved. You see something you think is wrong, get involved. Start looking into it. Try ways to expose it. Contact the media. The media is still a friend, and to some degree. And but you got to remember, the media is bought and paid for by big corporations, and big corporations is what we're talking about here. Going up against. But every now and then you find a good, diligent, investigative journalist, and you just find out who these people are, and you start just do it. Just do it. You'll find your way. Just do it. Have the perseverance, the passion, and the compassion to do something, and you will find a way to make it happen. When I did this, it was little old ladies in tennis shoes, and it was literally, that was it. Standing outside holding wilted cardboard signs, and I pretty much changed the course of that. And I didn't pretty much, I did. And I just don't like taking the credit for something that really multitude of people.
Right.
It takes a lot of people to really make change. And
Absolutely.
I can make a difference, but all of us together, we can make change.
Absolutely. So you wrote a book too. Tell me about your book.
Yeah, it's an autobiography. It's called In Your Face, From Actor to Animal Activist. It's basically how I got started and everything. And In Your Face takes you on a journey into places that you were never meant to go. And things that you were never meant to see, you were allowed to see. I've got photographs in there. I've spared the public the real graphic stuff, the really graphic pictures, but I do show some sad stuff because I do believe that people need to know the truth too. And in my explanation of things, it may get tough, but you get to the end of that paragraph, that's it. It moves on. But you got to know some of it, and because if not, I'm sugarcoating something that shouldn't be sugarcoated.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book it's a very good book, and there's something that's being done on it now, actually, as we speak. So you'll be hearing more of it, but the book has gotten excellent reviews, but more important, people that have read it over the last two decades, 2.5 decades, and told me it's changed their lives. And that's what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to grab people and pull them in and say, come on, let's go and take a look inside this facility and see what's going on inside there. Let's see the truth. And there's some great lines in the book. It's entertaining, not in a comical way, but it's entertaining and in a tongue in cheek, saying something in tongue in cheek. Yeah, it's really there's some good stuff in there, and I poured my heart out. I spent 2.5 years writing it, and still running Last Chance for Animals. Um, and if anybody wants to get it, it's called In Your Face from actor to animal activists, and you could get it going through our website. You can go on Amazon. You can go on all these multitude of ways you can get it. You can get it in voiceover. The book is read to you by an actor, not me, but he sounds a little like me, but more polished. So, yeah, I mean, it's really a good journey, I think, for people. And that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be slightly entertaining, but in a sense of educating you. And it educates you at the same time that it's educating. So, it's I don't think anybody's ever read the book that's didn't find it gripping and find it interesting. No one has ever said there's a boring minute in it. Not a boring minute. It doesn't have to be. I've got 42 years of, and and it's been in rewrites 3 times to bring it all up to date as well.
Fantastic. And what is your website for everybody?
lcanimal.org. www.lcanimal.org. lastchanceforanimals.org.
You know what? Thank you so much. This hour went really fast, and I appreciate you coming on because I know you're not feeling well, but I really learned a lot from you, and I'm so glad I had you on.
Thank you, and thank you for doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it because it's people like you that really get the word out there. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you, sir. You have a good evening, okay?
All right, you too now. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, well, that was Chris DeRose talking about animal cruelty and, torture and whatnot. I can honestly say, like I said, I'm not going to identify the place that I visited, okay, but I knew what was going on. I think I kind of pissed them off because I remember going in there and they said, well, do you understand what we're doing here? And I kind of mouthed off about that movie Project X. I says, yeah, I saw Project X. I get what you guys are doing. But when I heard the chimpanzee screaming, I wasn't very happy about it. So I went back to my office, wrote my story up. And at that point, I told my boss that to never, ever, ever send me back out there because unless it was to write a story about what they were actually doing out there, I wasn't about to go back out there. I didn't want to have to hear it, deal with it. Okay. So, anyway, Monday, we've got a great show lined up for you. I believe it's Mike Reixicker. We're going to be talking about shadow people. I could be wrong. I'm surprised we were on like we were tonight because we got some real high winds going on and usually the internet goes out. So we lucked out. But I'm glad you guys came to listen to this great show. And I learned a lot. And it's sad what goes on with these animals. And this has to come, out. Like he says, there's stories about it, but nobody ever really, I don't know if they're not listening or what, but they just, it goes in one ear and out the other. So I think it has to come out a lot more. But anyhow, I will see you guys on Monday. And like I said, we're booked for shows through March 10th. People that are on the loyal listener list will get an updated calendar. And that way you'll know what's coming up. And if you want to be on the loyal listener list, what do we have to do? You have to share this 5 times, 5 people. That's all you need to do, 5 people. Whether you like the show or you hate the show, share it. I want to get our name out there. I think we're getting some really quality guests and putting this thing together really nicely. So share. And those people that do share will get on that loyal listener list, and you will have a schedule of shows up to 1 month in advance. So you'll know what's coming up and what nights they're coming up on. But anyway, also, we are a nonprofit. The California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team is a nonprofit. This show I produce out of my own pocket. So the computer costs and the internet costs and the StreamYard costs to stream this to 4 different areas comes out of my pocket. So if you guys ever feel the need to help us out a little bit to support the show, that'd be great. Doesn't have to be a lot. I know people are strapped for cash with COVID and all this, but you can see the address of where to send anything that you'd like to donate along the bottom. I hate begging for money. It's not my thing, but It is what it is. It's like PBS, right? You know, PBS, the best programming comes on during what? Pledge month. So, or Pledge week. So, like I said, I will see you guys on Monday. Have a good one. And I'm pushing buttons here. Have a good one. And like I said, Monday.